rights and freedom fighters. We working for the least of these. We ain't tired. We follow examples, Douglas and Tubman, dig it. We working for the least of these. We rolling with it. On a mission to end poverty globally. The vehicle, central banks, credit cheese. Starting with the USA, Fed Reserve. USA example, leading the world. Time to change up the economic system. Top down makes poor and middle class victims. In a 64 book by LBJ, a declaration of war on poverty. LBJ 64 State of the Union, relief, cure, prevent poverty solution. Emma King Jr. Stanford 67, guaranteed annual income a lesson. Universal basic income, it's time for it. Top down economics, folks ignore it. Time for UBI across the U.S. nation. Time to pass UBI U.S. legislation. Time to end poverty in the U.S. nation. End poverty for future generations. Time for the U.S. to be a light for all nations, a guiding light. Nixon ended the gold standard in 71. The time of fiat money had begun. Government money made to be legal tender, not backed by gold, but people spend it. Use a central bank like it should be used. Fed Reserve System, end poverty through it. Talking about bottom-up economics, dig it. Cash money, time for poor and middle class to get it. U.S. economic system set up for rich. Change it so poor and middle class can get it. Fed creating money out of thin air and check it to add liquidity to the banking system. Creating money, keystrokes and balance sheets. Assets, liabilities, and balance sheets. Money out of thin air, no go to back it. Liquidity for banks, the banks are happy. The banks can loan out money to the people. People in debt, a system unequal. They call debt economic stimulation. They got folks in debt all across the nation. A top-down economics illustration. U.S. capitalistic motivation. Fed reserves cover deficit years. Keeping the U.S. rolling and switching gears. Deficit, they talking about finance the cost. Use the Fed Reserve and pay it off. 1971 to 2019, 44 deficit years in between. 1998 to 2001, 4-year surplus, let's check the run. 48 years, 44 deficit. Change up the system and get with it. Time for true economic stimulation through poor and middle class across the nation. Bottom-up economic philosophy, focus primarily on the least of these. Fed Reserve created money on the bottom. Liquidity for the least of these, they got them. Get money in the hands of the people. What the Fed's done for banks do for people. Fed Reserve creating money, dig it. UBI lift the least of these up with it. Folks struggling with ends trying to make it, while billionaires' cash is escalating. Change up the system the way it should be. An economic system for the least of these. Money placed at the bottom of the ladder. For the least of these, it's gonna happen. Nations of the world, time to get with it. For the least of these, end poverty mission. Jesus Christ said about the least of these, what you do to them, you do to him. In Matthew 25, 31 through 46, Jesus Christ told them what time it is. Matthew 25, 34, heaven awaits these who did for the least of these. Matthew 25, 41, hell awaits these who did not do for the least of these. USA, it's time to get with it. Universal basic income, time to give it to poor and middle class, the least of these. Bottom up economics, UBI cheese. Change it from top down to bottom up, so everyone can benefit from Fed stuff. Not just the rich, the poor and middle class will benefit from infusions of cash. Poor and middle class get the cash and spend it. The rich get the profits on the back end. Economic stimulation across the nation through poor and middle class engine nation. Bottom up economics, job creation. Demand creates jobs for corporations. Corporations have to hire more workers, dig it. No more stock buybacks and stuff with it. Stock buybacks happen with trickle down. Corporate bailouts, corporate welfare all around. Bottom up economics trickle up. And the rich at the top get their cut. Money created for folks at the bottom trickles up to rich folks at the top. And it benefits everyone on the ladder. Poor, middle class, rich, all are happy. In poverty. BGMG Productions.com. B Goines and M Goines.